Good evening and welcome to the rest of the news. We have a really important program lined up for you this evening. Our special guest is Matt Singleton.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Matt, tell us something about Matt Singleton.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've got an internet ministry called Bible Smack at www.biblesmack.net. I deal with apologetic issues, political issues, and theology, and all sorts of stuff.
And you're a Baptist minister.
Yes, I'm a Baptist minister.
That's important.
You know, let me start off our topic today with that.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know, but historically, the Baptist Church had a very powerful influence on America in its founding years. They argued for the doctrine of religious liberty. And our country, as it was set up, is a little bit different than other free nations around the world. We believe in religious liberty and not just religious tolerance.
Right.
In other words, we have freedom. We express ourselves freely, and so we worship God the way that God puts on our hearts, and we worship and believe whatever we want to believe as we feel convicted of the truth.
I want to tell you a story of what happened to me lately.
Okay.
I go to Evangel Church. And our pastor is Bob Rogers. And Brother Bob says, well, like he says every year, he wants everybody to fast. And he says, if you fast, you may hear from God. He says you have to humble yourself through fasting, and then you may hear from God. Well, you know, I don't like to fast. And I thought, well, you know, I wasn't happy about that whole thing. So, but, you know, the pastor says you ought to fast, so I tried to fast. Okay, so I got about 2 weeks into the fast, and I felt heard something from the Lord. And he asked me a question. He says, why do you think 100 people are getting killed and murdered in Louisville? And I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, it's because they kicked God out of the schools. Kicked prayer out of the schools. 1962, Engel versus Vital. They kicked God out of the schools. So, and he says, why do you think we're having all this drug epidemic? And people overdosing on drugs and all these problems with drugs. We never used to have those problems. And I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, it's because they told God that they didn't need him anymore. And he said, well, I'll leave and see how you do without God. And everything has kind of deteriorated since we allowed the atheists to take God out of our school system.
Well, and you know, one of the things is we've been talking about education before. I've kind of made the remark that we've gone from the secular public school system to the socialist public school system. In other words, the attitudes, the worldviews, and ideas that are promoted in public schools, it used to be one where, you know, everybody has their own opinion, you know, and Tommy over here may come from this religious tradition, and this one over there doesn't have a religion. And basically, there was a liberty. Everybody can have their own opinion, and that's fine. But instead, they'd say, okay, well, let's get rid of all these opinions. And then now I only give you the facts according to the religion of secular humanism.
This whole idea that we told God we don't want prayer anymore, let the atheists take prayer out of our schools, you know, that can all be overcome today because there's a bill in Frankfort that would put prayer back into Kentucky public schools, where, you know, the founding fathers that wrote the Constitution are the ones that put prayer in our schools.
Yes.
And now, all of a sudden, the atheists want to take it out. They don't like people learning about God. So this new bill, Senate Bill 17, is in Frankfort right now. It's already been introduced, and everyone can call Frankfort and tell them to, leave a message for their state representative and their state senator saying, we would like you to support Senate Bill 17. And it will be put back in our schools, just like Florida, Mississippi, and Louisiana have already put prayer back in their public schools, and Kentucky can do it too.
And, let's not be confused. We're talking about prayer back in the schools, bringing in religious liberty the way it was always intended.
Right.
We're not talking about coercion. Every now and again, there might be an issue where someone has an opinion and they say, okay, now I'm going to make everybody go according to this. That's not necessarily where we're going. But basically, why on earth would you, really be concerned about whether a student is praying and expressing their religious beliefs or maybe even irreligious beliefs or stuff like that? The fact is that we want kids to be taught to be free. If we want a free country, we need to keep them with a free mind, a free heart, and a free spirit.
Right. The number to call is 1-800-372-7181. If you can call that right now, and if the call doesn't go through, they may be closed late at night or something, but you can call back. They'll be there at 1-800-372-7181, and just tell them, I would like to leave a message for my state senator and my state representative to support Senate Bill 17. The operator will say, well, where do you live? And you tell them your address, and they can tell you who your state representative and your state senator are. And they'll leave that message. And so we need to do that right away. And the other thing is, if you call us right now, we'll send you this flyer that has the number on it and why we should back Senate Bill 17. It's all on here. And just call our number 893-2444 and call that right now. And we'll send you not only one for you and your family, but for everyone in your church or everyone in your neighborhood or everyone at work, all your relatives and neighbors and friends. We'll send them to you for free. So just call that number right now, 893-2444, and we'll get that out to you. And the other thing, we'll send you this flyer that tells you all of the things that this bill does. It says you can pray or engage in religious activities silently or vocally to the same extent and circumstances as is permitted with non-religious matters. In other words, they cannot stop your children from saying grace or whatever they want to pray. So right now, there's a problem in our schools because they discriminate against Christians.
Well, and one of the proofs of that is that in recent years they have wanted to go out their way to teach people about the Islamic religion in the public school system.
Yes.
Now, once again, I believe they ought to have, their religious liberty just like we have ours.
Sure.
But the problem is that these are the school systems that took down the Ten Commandments. And these same school systems that took down the Ten Commandments, what are they raising up now?
Murderers.
Well,
drug addicts.
Well, hold on. Specifically, with the Islam.
Yeah,
what was it, the 5 pillars?
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's right.
We have the same school systems that took away, they said, this is religious, we can't have anything religious, even though that was government. The Ten Commandments is a government thing. They say, okay, here's the 5 pillars of Islam, we're going to put that up, even as we took down the Ten Commandments. So that's favoritism.
Here, and the children are forced to say there is no God but Allah. They're forced to say that. Okay? You couldn't say there is no God but Jesus. Oh, they would have a fit.
Yeah.
But they're making them say, I just hate to say this, but when Obama went into office, he's trying to make America an Islamic nation.
And the thing is that, myself included and many others studying Islam do not believe that Islam has the same God.
No.
That Allah is not the same as Jehovah.
That's
and
right.
So basically, if you tell a kid who does not believe that Allah is Jehovah, they're basically denying their faith. Okay? Yeah. You're forcing them to make a religious statement that they don't believe in.
Right. See, so it's a terrible thing. So the number to call and leave a message for your state representative and state senator is 1-800-372-7181. You can call that number right now. And the other thing is, if you call us right now, we'll send these flyers, the 2 flyers, to you about for everyone in your church, and you can get your whole church calling to put prayer back in Kentucky schools. And the number to call our office is 893-2444. You can call that right now. And if no one is there, there'll be an answering machine. You just leave your name and address and phone number, and we'll get them out to you.
Now, one thing is that there's a lot of facts and there's a lot of logic and theory and stuff that goes by the fact that prayer works, and people are spiritual beings.
Right.
We were talking earlier about some things that neuroscientists have discovered lately, that the brain is actually a huge mass of cords, and these cords don't really connect together. Let's say if you're looking at something, you're watching the TV right now, you see the colors, you see the movements, but your brain picks these up separately. And then when it connects them, it's not actually, it goes into a certain section of the brain, and then all of a sudden, we don't know where it connects at. There is no physical organ that's connecting these things, but they all get connected. The mind starts to work, but they've never found the mind within the brain.
Mm.
And so what's happening is that we're discovering that there are depths and there are dimensions to the human spirit. And when we look at prayer, people need that. Now, the atheists of the past, you might think of like John Lennon saying, all you need is love. We don't have to worry about loving God. We can love each other. And yet, look at our culture now. The same artist will talk about, oh, I love you, or the ones that I hate you, I wish you were dead. I mean, it's the same type of thing. That love doesn't work if you don't have the love from God to start.
So they're making them memorize these things, that there is no God but Allah. And all of these pictures, like you say, they took down the 10 Commandments and put up Islam commandments.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And of course, because we've kicked God out, we're having all these murders in our city. We're having all these drug problems in our city. And really, it's time to turn back to God. And all you have to do is call this number, 1-800-372-7181, and leave a message for your state representative and your state senator to back Senate Bill 17. That's it. And we can turn our whole country right now. There's a song, I told you about it earlier. It says, God still moves among his people. Okay? So maybe God is telling you, hey, that's worth doing. So that's God's is still moving among his people. So call that number, 1-800-372-7181, and tell the operator that you want to leave a message for your state senator and your state representative, and you tell them the address, and then they'll look up who your legislators are and leave a message. And if they get enough of them, they will pass this bill and put prayer back in our schools like Florida, Mississippi, and Louisiana have already done. And we can do it too.
We can definitely do that.
Absolutely.
And we got a lot of good guys elected to office lately.
Absolutely.
Now, I will tell you this, though, okay? There's a lot of nice guys who are elected as politicians. The problem is that once they get elected, they're not just nice guys anymore, they're politicians.
Right.
So
right.
you got to get after them. You got to call them, okay? And when you look at that number, call in Frankfort, okay? The Frankfort number is 1-800-372-7181.
Yeah.
You know. But let's look at some of these things that they're talking about with the SB17 bill.
These are the 4 main things it does. It says when that pray, and it allows the students to pray and engage in religious activities silently or vocally to the same extent and circumstances as permitted with non-religious matters. Well, there's a lot of non-religious matters. Then it says the next thing this law says is that you can express religion and political viewpoints to the same extent and circumstance as is permitted to express non-religious or non-political topics in homework, class, and art assignments. In other words, this guy in here, he was the valedictorian. He was giving a speech, and then they said, "Oh, you can't talk about God in your speech." All right, well, it says you can talk about God just as much as you can talk about anybody else. That's what the law would allow.
This fella, he's a student who is probably near adulthood if he's graduating as a senior. He's near adulthood. He should be taught to be an American, and an American has a free mind, free speech, free opinion. And they say, no, we just want you to know that you shouldn't have your freedom. You shouldn't be thankful. You shouldn't address other matters in front of us because you're not free. I mean, that's the only implication I could see.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, but this law would change all that. Senate Bill 17. And then it would allow the students to participate in before school and after school student religious groups to the same extent as non-religious student groups are permitted to meet. Okay? In other words, they used to meet around the flagpole and pray before school. And they say, oh, no, we don't want you to pray.
And this is one of these things where there are, like, I'll call them rogue schools where some of them like to act up with anti-Christian behavior.
Yeah.
Now, of all people, Bill Clinton actually signed into law to make sure that student groups could meet, that there could be religious student groups at school. Now, some of these schools who might have an anti-Christian perspective, well, like, for instance, let's say in Washington State, there are some people starting satanic clubs for children, okay? They're allowed to do that, and yet they would kind of, they'd try to give you the new, they would try to con you into thinking that you didn't have the same rights for your Christianity.
Right. So this Senate Bill 17 would stop that. Then it says students can display political or religious messages on their clothing and distribute religious or political literature under the same reasonable restrictions as permitted for non-religious or non-political literature. So that's what this new bill would do. And basically would put prayer back in our schools. And we need that. We need God in our state. So call that number, 1-800-372-7181, and just tell the operator you want to leave a message for your state senator and your state representative. This is our time to take Kentucky back. And we can do this. And everyone is important, right?
Yeah, and the facts speak for themselves. Ever since prayer was taken out of schools, every year the SAT scores drop.
Absolutely.
We look at behavior issues. Just a year ago, there was a girl out of our own city's public school system inciting a big march of naked women down the street. And you look at the storms of, like, lots of kids running in gang packs, messing around with our malls and things like that. You look at, that murder rate, well over 100 people. And we've got a new murder that was just reported for this year.
Yeah, I heard that. They just had a murder for this year already.
You see, the thing is that these people have needs. They have spiritual needs, and they say, let's get rid of like the spiritual stuff. So what do you have in place? Well, all of a sudden, people started abusing our medical facilities for painkillers. And then after that, they start bringing in the drug heroin and all these things. In my life, a friend of a friend, I didn't know him personally, but there was one who just OD'd just 2 days ago. There's a lot of this stuff going on, and people have needs that could be met, and that God can make a place in people's hearts and make our community safer.
Absolutely. And here is a list of the states where they are having Muslim influence. Here in Florida, they're forced to design a Muslim prayer rug. And in Massachusetts, they were forced to say, I bear witness, there is no God but Allah. Now, what if they said, no God but Jesus?
Yeah.
They would have a fit. But they're forcing them to say that in these schools in Massachusetts. The children are being taken out of school and taken to a mosque so that you can tell them you have to believe in Allah. Allah is the one God. They're taught that. They can't say, oh, Jesus is the only Savior. Oh, no, Allah is the only God. They're pushing Muslim in the public schools. Here's Tennessee. Students were told there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. Okay, here in New York State, students said the Pledge of Allegiance in Arabic. And in Maryland, high school students were told Allah is the same God that is worshipped by Christianity and Judaism. Well, that's not true.
And that's the whole point, is that they say, we control your beliefs.
Yeah.
We're going to tell you what your God is, what your God is not, because we're the government.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It does. It's terrible.
I wouldn't have a problem if the girls came to school and said, okay, we believe that we're a Muslim and we want to wear this stuff. But when the school system says...
forces them.
Yeah, and then they do the same, they do the opposite thing. They force their beliefs, and then they say, well, you can't have your beliefs.
Yeah.
That's not right. And the thing is that our school system in Kentucky, according to the state constitution, it says there shouldn't be any tax money given to a school that's religious or denominational, but also sectarian. There should not be any tax money given to a sectarian school. And what do? They play one hand and then they do the other. They say, you can't have liberty, but we'll give it over here.
Now, here is the a copy of the document that the Obama administration gave out, saying if you said anything negative about the Muslims, they would try to prosecute you, put you in jail.
And I remember, I think it was about a year ago, it might have been a little bit more, but there was this big movement of the anti-bullying campaign. And the leader, one of the leaders in this national organization, went off into a fit, just really, saying horrible things about Christianity because of their attitude about homosexuality or whatever, which, Muslims have stricter rules against homosexuality than
Absolutely,
Christians.
yeah.
So, but, basically, just really doing a lot of desecration of Christianity. And yet here we are again, protect this religion, don't do that for the others. And as I said, my Baptist heritage and our history, that was the issue. There was a town in Massachusetts, in the state of Massachusetts, they would figure that you should pay your tithes to the Congregational church. But if you were in another church, like a Baptist church, then you'd have to pay your tithe first to the Congregational church, and then what's left over, you could tithe to your group. And so basically, they didn't like that favoritism.
Yeah.
And there was a Baptist named Harold Leland who was running for political office, and he was running against James Madison. And they talked, and basically, Harold Leland said that he would give up the race if James Madison would make sure that the doctrine of religious liberty, which is what's on the Baptist confessional, would be put into the Bill of Rights. And so our First Amendment is based on the idea of religious liberty.
Absolutely. Now here is another story, faith banned at high school graduation. Here's this young man, was the valedictorian of his class. He started to say something about God, and they shut off his microphone. Then his microphone was shut off. So we need this law because they're pushing Islam, but no protection for the Christian people. Call that number, 1-800-372-7181 right now. And also call our number, 893-2444, and we'll send you this information about the Senate Bill 17 for everyone in your congregation, everyone in your church, or everyone in your neighborhood, everyone at work, all your relatives. We'll send it all, and it's all free. So we'd like to hear from you right now, 893-2444. And with God's help, we can take our state back from the humanists and all of this, where they're forcing Christians to pay for basically atheistic teaching in the public school.
And it ultimately becomes what we call socialism. The idea that the government has a right to control the lives of our children, to control the lives of our people. Even with that example, on his way out of high school, he was chosen because he was one of the hardest working students, or the hardest working student at school.
Yeah.
And then they cut his mic off. That is very disrespectful. And you think about that. That's not only mocking him for his personal faith, it's mocking all the students. It's saying, you never had freedom. We never want you to be free. We never want you to do anything that's outside of our box.
Then the Muslim, they're trying to convert our schools to a Muslim way of thinking.
Well, and the thing is that the Islamic religion does not believe in religious liberty.
Yeah.
You look at the different Muslim countries.
Yeah.
It's probably the strongest socialistic pro-government type of institution on the world stage today.
Well, we're about out of time. We appreciate you all tuning in. And don't forget to tune in again next week for the rest of the news. And we want to thank Matt Singleton for being on the program with us. So tune in again next week for the rest of the news.
And let's use our freedom to pray to the Lord.
Amen.
Pray for us, and we'll pray for you.
God bless you.